Well, I first read Manto in college and mostly his short stories. I didn't even know he wrote so many essays and biographical sketches, and I didn't know that much about him. And I was kind of reintroduced to Manto in 2012, which was his centenary celebration, and a lot of people started writing about him. And also his essays got translated into English, and having, all of us have been educated in English, so that becomes our entry point into even the languages of the country. And I read his essays and I thought, wow, this man is just as fascinating as his stories. And that's when I felt, wow, why does he feel like he's a contemporary man of today? And I felt like by telling his story, I could get an opportunity to respond to everything that's happening today without being didactic. And for me, that was my main motivation, to decide that, okay, I'm going to tell his story so I can take refuge in Manto and his times, and yet talk about everything that disturbs me, that concerns me about today. Whether it's identity politics that's being played, whether it's freedom of expression that is being challenged, whether it's about displacement and where you belong, and this whole thing that we were talking before this interview, the divisive powers that are telling us how different we are as opposed to how similar we are, and all of that. So I think he was a very strong voice of conscience then and continues to be one. Constantly. I think the details were a lot that were in the script itself when I was researching. Also, I went and recce'd and looked for locations myself, even before I had the money. I was like, okay, I have to find the right places. Do they exist? Will I be able to afford it? So I saw lots of places, and also to find Lahore in India, because I wanted to shoot in Lahore. I was very keen to shoot there, and I even were talking to film people who could, actually help me with the shoot there. And we had all of that, and then there was these Indo-Pak tensions last year, and we couldn't. So I had to find a Lahore also in India. So I'm a bit of a stickler for those details, and I remember every day coming like 2 hours before anybody else in the crew had come, and just with the art director, taking out things that are not right, adding whatever we could, and just at the same time, I didn't want it to be so distracting, the production design and the art direction, that in the middle of the film you're sitting and admiring the production design. It should be just enough to create that atmosphere. And I want the audience to just be with the story and the characters, and everything else just aids it, whether it's the costume, it's the production design, it's the sound, it's the music. Those are just things to make it more authentic and real. And I want you to forget where you're sitting and you go back into the 40s, and yet everything that's happening, it's not something that's dated. It's something that is speaking to you today. All these actors, I just literally shamelessly called them and said, I want you to just support the film. I'm not going to say I thought about you while writing it, because I didn't. But if you acted in it, I think it would help and make the film more accessible without me having to compromise on the quality or the tone or the way I'm trying to tell the story, just by your being there and, bringing your authentic performances to it. And I think that's what happened. It comes from convictions. I always say, when people say, wow, you're really courageous to do Firaaq when you did, which was 2008, my first film, and then now Manto, and how did you even think of chewing so much? It's huge. I mean, to be able to do Bombay and Lahore and period, and not with those whole Bollywood tropes, and that too for someone who doesn't really speak Urdu. I mean, there's a lot of Urdu that we speak in Hindustani. I don't think there's really anything called Hindi and Urdu in Delhi. At least the language जो हम लोग आम बात करते हैं, this is a mix of Hindi and Urdu. So, but having said that, it was a difficult project. Or Fire, which was my first film as an actress. I think if you have strong convictions, courage follows. You don't need to seek courage. I don't go around saying, oh, am I strong enough to take it up? I just say, okay, do I really want to tell this story? And if the answer is yes, then I think courage just comes without you even knowing it. And I think Manto was like that. I mean, at one level, his dilemma was, he really was a family man. He wanted to be good to his family, his wife, his daughters. He wanted to protect them. But every time he wrote and said things, they were provocative. And his family was more and more in jeopardy. But his compulsion to tell the truth was in direct conflict with that. So, again, he was just so driven by convictions that fearlessness came from that place. And luckily, I don't have those dilemmas. I mean, he faced much more and he was far more fearless. But I think it comes from conviction. And these days, we don't have enough convictions. 10 years is a long time that I took, not for my next film. I can promise you that now the bug has really bitten, and all the mistakes I made in this, I want to rectify them and see how I can make a third film. No, and also there are so many stories to tell, you know. I think for me, film has always, whether acting or directing, has always been a means to an end, you know. So I've always tried to use them to tell stories that I feel need to be told. And because I don't come with an ambition to become this great actor or this great director, it also frees you, and you know, you become more fearless because of that, because you have no sort of performance anxiety. You're not, it's not about somebody's validation or that you want to prove something. You're doing it because this story just compels you and you want to share it. And when you come with that, I think it just frees you also from failure. You know, you're not scared. It might work, might not work. I have no idea. But yeah, thank you.